The fluorescent lights of Savamar hummed quietly over the aisles on a Wednesday evening in Boston. It was 7 o'clock, that transitional hour when the after-work crowd had thinned, and the store felt almost peaceful, almost empty, almost like you could pretend you were the only person there with your problems and your struggles. Thomas Hayes stood in the organic section, absently picking up a bottle of olive oil that cost $28. He didn't even glance at the price. At 51 years old, Thomas was the founder of Hayes Industries, a real estate empire worth $3 billion. Price tags were suggestions he'd stopped reading years ago. His assistant usually handled his grocery orders anyway. But tonight he dismissed his driver early and decided to shop for himself, craving something ordinary in his extraordinary life. He placed the olive oil in his cart alongside grass-fed steaks, imported cheese, and a bottle of wine that cost more than some people's monthly grocery budget. He was heading toward the checkout when he saw her. A woman stood in front of the discount bread rack, her hands trembling as she held a calculator and a small pile of coins. She looked to be in her early 30s, wearing a jacket that had been mended multiple times and jeans with faded knees. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her face held the kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying weight too heavy for one person to bear. 3 children clustered around her legs like small birds seeking shelter. The oldest was maybe 7, a girl with her mother's dark eyes and a coat 2 sizes too small. Next came a boy around 5, holding his little sister's hand. She couldn't have been more than 3 years old, wearing mismatched shoes that had probably been donated or found at a thrift store. Thomas watched as the woman carefully counted her coins, her lips moving silently with each penny, each nickel, each dime. She had $37.43 spread across her palm. He knew because he'd gotten close enough to see, pretending to examine bread he'd never eat. The woman picked up items from her cart, checked prices, put them back. A jar of peanut butter went back on the shelf, then a box of pasta. She kept a loaf of discount bread, a gallon of milk, some rice, and a few cans of soup. Basic survival food. Nothing fresh. Nothing that would give her children the nutrients growing bodies needed. The little girl tugged on her mother's jacket. "Mama, can we get apples?" Teacher said apples are healthy. The woman's face crumpled for just a second before she forced a smile. "Not this week, baby. Maybe next week, okay?" "You always say next week," the older daughter said quietly, not accusing, just stating a fact she learned too young. "I know, sweetie. I'm sorry. Mama's doing her best." Thomas stood frozen in the aisle, watching the scene unfold like a movie he couldn't pause. Something about it reached into his chest and squeezed. The woman's trembling hands. The children's patient acceptance of disappointment. The careful mathematics of poverty playing out under fluorescent lights. He thought about his own childhood, something he rarely allowed himself to do. Growing up in a trailer park in rural Alabama, watching his mother perform the same ritual at the only grocery store in town, counting coins, choosing between bread and milk, apologizing to children who deserved better. His mother had worked 3 jobs trying to keep them fed. She'd worn the same exhausted expression as this woman, the same defeated posture of someone fighting a battle they knew they were losing. Thomas had escaped through scholarships, ruthless ambition, and a refusal to ever be poor again. He'd built an empire. He'd won. But somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten what poverty actually felt like. He'd insulated himself so completely from struggle that he'd stopped seeing people who were still stuck in it. They'd become invisible to him, background noise in a successful life. Until now, until this woman counting coins brought all flooding back. The woman finished her calculations and headed toward the checkout with her meager cart. Thomas followed at a distance, his own cart forgotten. At the register, she carefully handed over her coins to a bored teenage cashier who sighed at having to count change. $37.43, the woman said, her voice barely audible. The cashier rang up the items. $39.17. The woman's face went white. "But I calculated. I must have miscounted. I'm sorry. Let me put something back. She started to reach for the milk, but the oldest daughter grabbed her arm. Mama, no. We need milk for Sarah. She's still little. Tears welled in the woman's eyes. She reached for the soup cans instead. These, then. I'll put these back. Thomas moved without thinking. He stepped forward, placing his hand gently on the woman's shoulder. She startled, turning to face him with fear in her eyes, the automatic fear that comes from a life where strangers rarely bring good news. Please, Thomas said quietly, let me get this. It would be my honor. The woman shook her head immediately, pride flashing across her exhausted face. No, I couldn't. We don't need charity. I just miscalculated. It's fine. It's not charity, Thomas said gently. It's kindness. There's a difference. And someone did this to my mother once, a long time ago. Let me pass it forward. Before she could protest again, Thomas pulled out his credit card and handed it to the cashier. Ring up her groceries, and then go back and get everything she put back on the shelves. Everything she wanted but couldn't afford. The cashier stared at him. The woman stared at him. The children stared at him. Sir, I don't think, the cashier began. I'm not asking, Thomas said firmly but kindly. Please, do it. 20 minutes later, Thomas pushed a shopping cart full of groceries toward the parking lot. Real groceries. Fruits and vegetables. Protein. Snacks for the kids. Things that would last more than a few days. He'd gone through the store methodically, thinking about what a family needed, what children should have, what no mother should have to choose between. The woman walked beside him, tears streaming silently down her face, too overcome to speak. Her children followed, the oldest holding 3 bags, the middle child carrying one, the littlest one skipping, because something wonderful was happening even if she didn't fully understand it. Which car is yours? Thomas asked gently. The woman pointed to an ancient Honda with mismatched panels and a taped-over window. The kind of car that barely ran, that cost more to fix than it was worth. But when you had no money for anything else, you kept it running through prayer and determination. Thomas loaded the groceries into the trunk carefully, making sure nothing would break or spill. When he finished, he turned to face the woman properly. She composed herself slightly, wiping her tears, trying to rebuild the walls poverty teaches you to build. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know how to thank you properly. This is groceries for a month. Maybe more. You don't know what this means. What's your name? Thomas asked. Elena. Elena Rodriguez. These are my children. Maria, Carlos, and Sarah. The children waved shyly, and Thomas felt his heart crack a little wider. They were so small, so innocent, so deserving of a childhood that wasn't defined by hunger and scarcity. Elena, I want to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. What's your situation? Why are you counting coins for groceries? Elena hesitated, pride warring with desperation. Finally, she sighed, the walls crumbling. I'm a single mother. My husband left 2 years ago. I work as a home health aide, but the pay is barely minimum wage, and I can only work when my kids are at school. My mom used to watch them after school, but she passed away 6 months ago, and childcare costs more than I make. So I cut my hours. Now I can't afford rent and food. I've been choosing rent because I can't let my babies be homeless. So we've been eating very little, very carefully. Her voice cracked. I'm a nurse, you know. I went to nursing school. But I couldn't afford to finish my degree when my husband left. I was 3 months away from graduating. 3 months. And I had to drop out to work full-time. Now I'm stuck in a job that barely pays anything. And I can't go back to school because I can't afford it, and I can't afford to work less, and it's just... She broke down completely, covering her face with her hands. I'm failing them. Every day I'm failing my children, and I don't know how to fix it. Thomas felt something shift inside him, like tectonic plates rearranging. He thought about all the money sitting in his accounts. Money he didn't need, couldn't possibly spend, money that accumulated because money made money when you had enough of it. He thought about his empty mansion, his unused vacation homes, his fleet of cars he rarely drove. And he thought about these 3 children who might not eat fruit this week, about a woman who'd almost finished nursing school but couldn't because life had dealt her an impossible hand. "Elena," Thomas said carefully, "I want to help, really help, not just groceries. I want to change your situation. Would you let me do that?" Elena looked up at him with disbelief and fear mingling in her eyes. "Why? You don't know us. People don't just help strangers like this." "My mother was you 30 years ago," Thomas said simply, "counting coins in a grocery store, trying to feed me and my sister, working jobs that broke her body and spirit. A stranger helped her once, paid for her groceries, and then helped her get job training. That kindness changed our lives. It's why I'm standing here today, able to help you. It's time I remembered that." 2 weeks later, Elena sat in a coffee shop near Boston University, holding an acceptance letter with shaking hands. Thomas had paid for her to finish her nursing degree. Full tuition, books, childcare, and a living stipend, so she could quit her grueling job and focus on school. "I don't understand," she kept saying, tears running down her face. "Why are you doing this?" Thomas sat across from her, smiling genuinely for the first time in years. "Because I can. Because you deserve a chance. Because your children deserve a mother who isn't drowning. Is that enough reason?" Elena nodded, unable to speak. But Thomas didn't stop there. He set up a trust fund for each of her children's education. He paid off her car and bought her a reliable used vehicle, so she wouldn't break down on the way to school or work. He covered her rent for the next 2 years while she studied. He did all of this quietly, efficiently, the way someone who built an empire knew how to get things done. And in doing these things, Thomas found something he'd lost years ago: purpose, meaning, the feeling that his wealth actually mattered for something beyond accumulation. He started going to Savamart every Wednesday at 7, not to shop, but to watch, to see, to find other Elenas, other families counting coins and making impossible choices. Each time he found someone, he helped. Groceries paid for, bills covered, opportunities created. His accountant questioned the expenses. His friends thought he'd lost his mind. But Thomas had never felt more sane, more alive, more like himself than he had in decades. 6 months after that first meeting, Elena graduated from nursing school at the top of her class. Thomas attended her graduation, sitting with Maria, Carlos, and Sarah, who'd drawn him cards decorated with hearts and "thank you" spelled in crayon. Elena crossed the stage to receive her diploma. And when they called her name, she looked into the audience and found Thomas's eyes. She mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." After the ceremony, Elena approached him with her children, all of them dressed in clothes that fit properly now, looking healthy and happy and fed. "I got a job," Elena said, her voice trembling with pride, "at Boston Children's Hospital. Pediatric nursing. It's everything I dreamed of. Good pay. Benefits. I can take care of my children now. Really take care of them." "I'm so proud of you," Thomas said, and he meant it more than anything he'd said in years. "It's because of you," Elena said. "You didn't just help us survive. You helped me remember who I wanted to be. You gave me back my dream when I thought it was dead forever." Sarah, the youngest, tugged on Thomas's jacket. "Are you our angel?" she asked seriously. "Mama says you're our angel." Thomas knelt down to her level. "No, sweetie, I'm just a person who remembered what it's like to need help. Your mama's the angel. She's the one who fought so hard for you, who never gave up even when things were impossible." 1 year after that night in Savamart, Thomas stood in the conference room of Hayes Industries, presenting a new initiative to his board of directors. Project Second Chance, he called it. A program that would identify struggling families and provide pathways out of poverty. Not handouts. Hands up. Education funding, job training, childcare support, health care, everything that stood between people and their potential. His board was skeptical. Some were openly hostile. This wasn't what corporations did. They argued. This was bleeding heart nonsense that would drain profits. Thomas listened to all their objections. Then he pulled up a photo on the screen behind him. Elena in her nursing uniform, standing with her 3 smiling children outside Boston Children's Hospital. 1 year ago, Thomas said, I walked past this woman counting coins at a grocery store. I could have kept walking. Most of me wanted to keep walking. But something made me stop. Something made me see her. Really see her. He told them the whole story. The groceries. The nursing school. The transformation. Elena is now a pediatric nurse, saving children's lives. Her kids are thriving in school. They're healthy, happy, and dreaming about their futures. All because someone stopped and helped. Because someone remembered that we're all one catastrophe away from being the person counting coins. Thomas paused, letting his words sink in. Project Second Chance has already helped 50 families in 6 months. 50 families who are now stable, working, contributing to society. 50 sets of children who won't grow up with the trauma of poverty. The return on investment isn't just financial, though I believe it will be. It's human. It's moral. It's what we should have been doing all along. The board approved the program. Not everyone was happy about it, but they approved it because Thomas was a majority shareholder and because, deep down, some of them remembered what it was like to struggle too. That evening, Thomas met Elena and her children at a park. It had become a monthly tradition, this gathering, a reminder for both of them about where they'd been and how far they'd come. The children played on the swings while Elena and Thomas sat on a bench, watching them laugh and run, and be kids in a way they hadn't been able to be before. I have something to tell you, Elena said. I've been saving money. Every month, I put aside a little bit, and I start my own fund. Nothing big, but I'm helping other families at the hospital. Families who can't afford medications or treatments. I'm passing it forward like you did for me. Thomas felt his eyes sting. That's incredible, Elena. You taught me that wealth isn't what you have, Elena said softly. It's what you do with what you have. You had billions and felt empty. I had nothing and felt desperate. Now we both have purpose. Funny how that works. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Sarah push Carlos on the swing, Maria reading under a tree, 3 children who'd been saved by a simple act of stopping and seeing. Thank you, Elena said finally, for seeing us that night, for remembering your mother, for being the person who stopped when everyone else kept walking. Thank you, Thomas replied, for reminding me why any of this matters, for showing me that success isn't about building the biggest empire. It's about lifting people up, about remembering where we came from, and reaching back to help others climb out too. As the sun set over the park, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Thomas thought about his mother. She'd passed away years ago, but he felt her presence now more than he had in decades. She'd be proud, he thought, proud that he'd finally remembered the lessons she'd taught him, that kindness matters more than wealth, that seeing people matters more than success, that we're all connected, all responsible for each other, all one bad day away from needing the help we're so quick to deny others. Sometimes the people we help save us right back. They remind us that underneath all our armor, all our wealth, all our success, we're still the children we used to be, standing in grocery stores, hoping someone will see us. And when we remember that, when we truly remember, we become the people we were always meant to be. Not just successful, but human. Not just wealthy, but generous. Not just powerful, but kind. The greatest riches aren't counted in bank accounts, but in lives touched, in futures changed, in the moment someone stops counting coins because someone else remembered to care. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video. It helps us share more beautiful stories like this one. Kindly drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I like to know what part of the world engages with my story. Oh, also, Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Deep Cut Stories, for more emotional stories about love, kindness, and fate that'll touch your heart deeply. Thank you for watching.